Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Impact Rooms. Today, I'm joined with Ian Thornton-Trump, who is the CISO at Cyjax. So, Ian, how are you on this lovely day?
I am super pumped up to be on the Impact Show because I've heard a lot about the show and kind of what you do. And yeah, I'm super excited to just have this discussion today.
No, that's great stuff. So, obviously, we'll start with the normal kind of typical icebreaker question. Let's get to know you as a person. I can see you're already in Batman's cave, so we'll start with that. So, what is your favorite superhero, Ian, and why?
Well, I'm going to go with Batman. I sometimes put it on my background for the quirkiness of it, but the fact that he's like a gadget guy, he's like a hacker with uber cyber skills, and plus he gets to beat up bad guys, which is, I think, the fantasy of everyone that works in information security.
That's brilliant that you've linked it back to information security. I think that's amazing. Fine. So, obviously, just so everyone gets to know Ian, obviously I've spoke to you numerous of times now, but do you want to give us a quick elevator pitch and just tell us in a couple of sentences a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me to sort of, kind of do this, and it's like, as the CISO of Cyjax, that has a big career behind it of doing all sorts of different stuff in the security industry. And I kind of like to say I was in the room when the internet was born, but like most of us, I grew up as a BBS kid in the early days before doing some military stuff, some rock and roll music production stuff, and just kind of falling into the security game because I enjoyed it so much, and it's really where my passions ended up lying.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Okay, fine. And obviously, what do you see as the biggest opportunity within data and your skill and sector at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I think we're just on the cusp of, wide scale adoption of machine learning, AI technologies to really drive the security control side. But when I talk to peers and people, say in their 30s or 40s, talking about, how do I get to an executive position in security in my organization, it comes down to leadership and communication skills. I tell people, get enough certs to be credible, get enough experience to be, noticed, and to have some sort of, academic slash, experience behind you. And then, work on those communication skills, PowerPoint presentation skills. And above all, more than anything else, learn how to draw pictures so that you can communicate to non-technical people. Because I see the leadership position of security evolving into something that isn't just a back of house, CISOs doing the compliance piece or what have you. I see it as aligning the people, process, and technology and security to bring it into sort of like focus with what the business objectives are, or what the organization's, critical assets are, and keeping them safe from bad guys. So I think the mission is going to expand for security in organizations. I think it's being taken a lot more seriously than it was, say, pre-COVID. And now I think it's time for executive leaders to be able to communicate coherently, succinctly, and to bring a sense of assurance and calm to the organization, even though it might be in the midst of chaos.
Okay, yeah, brilliant stuff. Okay, fine. And as you look to the future, and obviously you've been in the industry a while, and obviously have got some good ideas on this. I mean, what would you say is the future of data science? How do you think that's going to develop over the next few years?
It's going to absolutely explode. The reason for this is sort of twofold, is that we're starting to understand that data is a huge asset to an organization, but it's also a huge risk, right? The more data you have, the riskier it is to, manage it and keep it around, for the evil hackers to take away from you and then try and ransom back to you. But data is really how we're going to be making decisions in the future using machine learning and AI models. This has vast implications for cybersecurity in terms of like detecting attacks before they happen. But one of the big data science stories that a lot of people aren't talking about is the phenomenal amount of work that went in for the data around building these vaccines that are been rolling out for companies. In fact, I'd argue and say that we couldn't have advanced the vaccine production and distribution in a safe manner without massive investments in data science and data technology, everything from the hard scientific end, but also in vetting the safety and, of the product of the vaccine itself, and making sure that, the testing information was all gathered and fed back to regulators and to the actual manufacturers themselves. So, as we move forward into, more autonomous vehicles, more types of data sources, what I think we're going to see is the challenge in the industry will really be normalizing data, creating insight or ideas from that data, but at the same time, really working hard on the agenda of protecting that data, because it's becoming an asset to the company, just like the way your customer list is an asset, or your employee payroll information is an asset.
Great. I mean, you've obviously spoke about the risk of data there and data security. I mean, have you got a top tip for people that may be starting on their journey in data security, or even people that have been doing it for years, that, is there a common mistake you see made when it comes to data security, or have you got a top tip for us around that?
Yeah, I mean, really work with the business to align expectations around it. Create a data retention policy that doesn't necessarily call for deletion, but certainly calls for archiving in an offline state where, potential actors couldn't get at it. I had a huge opportunity privilege recently with a group called Hub Security to gain the insights from one of Pfizer's chief data scientists. And what he told me really resonated. He said he gets the need for security, but security can't get in the way of doing the actual research that, that can end up maybe curing some of the diseases that we're currently struggling with, or gain huge insights into the way cancer works so that we can develop drugs to target it. And so, I think, again, this is where it comes back to those communication skills that I was harping on, is you need to be able to sit in a room with these really smart, real people that know nothing about security, but know everything there is to know about, data science and insight and manipulating that information. And so we really have to start working collaboratively. And that doesn't mean coming in swinging as a CISO and mandating security and this. It means you need to have a flexible, agile approach in order to achieve your security objectives without actually degrading the ability of the business to gain the most out of the data that it's assembled.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Okay, fine. And obviously, say we'll come back to a similar question. Obviously, if there is, as you mentioned, data is going to grow. A lot of small and medium organisations as well are investing a lot in data. I mean, is there any kind of top tips you've got for people that are starting off on their data journey, or even people that are looking to move it from a very successful to a lot of people I've spoken to, especially the large organisations, are looking to do the self-serving analytics, that type of thing. Have you got any top tips for them for how to start or to develop their data journey?
Yeah, like definitely. So the first is invest in somebody to wrangle it and manage it, right? So even medium businesses and organizations like that are beginning to think about, understanding customer analytics and stuff like that, hire the skill set, and then make sure there's budget for the tools that are needed. Right? And nothing's worse than hiring an expensive resource and having them stand around, not, producing. Conversely, you can buy all the tools in the world, but if somebody doesn't know how to use them, you'll never get the value out of it. So, approach it as you would a project with a scope and set some reasonable expectations around, what kind of insights you're looking for. I think you don't just go out there and hire data scientists and say, okay, go and build fabulous things. That's not how it works. And maybe if you have the budgets of like the Facebooks and the Googles and the Microsofts, you can afford to have an entire department that doesn't really produce anything. But in the medium business, I think the focus really now is on getting that data ready so that you can apply things like no-code AI models, or you can dump machine learning algorithms into it, and you get an expected result, or at least a result that you can work with. And I think that's where we're going, where data normalization is going to be a huge issue. A lot of people have talked about the data lake. However, my view of the data lake is it's a giant piece of unstructured data that grows at a phenomenal rate, and it may exceed budgetary constraints and even just human constraints. Right? Like when you look at, a data pool of 3 or 4 or 5 terabytes of data, you have to ask yourself, well, how are we backing that up? And now all of a sudden you're going to get a 5 terabyte data storage bill from Amazon or Azure or Google, and that's going to be expensive and shocking and surprising.
Yeah, no, brilliant stuff. Okay, fine. Great stuff. No, say that's fine. So obviously, say you're obviously very passionate about data, and data science. I mean, do you want to kind of it'd be good to get your view on, do you want to give us kind of what inspires you about data, why data is such a passion of yours?
So I think, I talked earlier about normalization. I'll talk about specifically in the use cases within cybersecurity. So what happened is attackers started attacking, and sort of everybody was flying around and everybody had logs, and we were trying to put together the story after the breach happened. Right. In most cases, you only find out that you've been breached and then you kick off an incident response. I think data and data science gives us 2 new opportunities. So the first is you need a framework that expresses the activity in terms of defining that activity as anomalous or bad or worthy of investigation, and just business as usual. So we got the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which I think is the first thing that you can point at and say, okay, here's adversarial action defined in easy to understand steps. The next key of that is, are you even gathering the steps that you need so that you can analyze that data with the MITRE ATT&CK framework? I think as we've seen organizations in the security industry progress forward, when their particular product can grab specific MITRE ATT&CK framework indicators, right? That's a huge step forward. Now what happens, and I think this is sort of the end of the journey, if you will, is that once you start combining these MITRE ATT&CK frameworks, you get a probability guess of something very bad is either happening, but ultimately with machine learning and AI, we get to, hey, based on these 1 or 2 things, my best guess now is something terrible is about to happen. So we're going to move from that totally reactive model to incident response to a much more proactive model based on applying the MITRE ATT&CK framework to all of that telemetry and data that we're scooping up that is found in your logs and your antivirus and your Windows Active Directory. And finally, well, who knows, right? But maybe our salvation is going to be the fact that now we can, with some degree of accuracy, predict attacks on our organization and take the necessary action at machine speed in order to prevent them from happening, right? That's, I think, the ultimate journey of framework plus data equals proactivity and mitigation, all as an automated solution. We are nowhere near there yet, but 5 years from now, I think we'll start seeing that automated, counter activity where we're willing to trust the algorithms. We're willing to trust the AI model's conclusions at machine speed to interdict these attacks.
Brilliant. No, great stuff. No, it was really interesting to hear from you and your thoughts on the future of data and data security. As I think it, as we just mentioned, loads of organisations are going on the transformation piece, and it is key to remember. Bring people along the journey with you. Don't just lead it. And say, here you go at the end. Tell people the importance of it. Data is valuable. It can make a difference to, as we've seen over the last 12-18 months, can make a huge difference to people's lives. And you can get the right results, hopefully, if you do it correctly. So thanks very much, Ian, for being involved in the Impact Room. It's really good to hear from you and get your thoughts on data and stuff. And hopefully we can kind of catch up soon and hear some more about your kind of exciting journey. So thanks very much, Ian. I look forward to catching up soon. All right.